Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. Here are the headlines for the White Plains week, January 15th, 2021. COVID vaccinations begin in White Plains, New York, USA. Federated Department Stores announces Macys in the Galleria will close in 6 months, and Sears departs this week. Legislators protest New York State Board of Elections endorsing touchscreen voting machines. Westchester County COVID infections continue to grow, and County Executive Latimer and Governor Cuomo plead for more vaccine allocations. America has 4.5 more days of President Donald Trump. COVID volunteers organized to help seniors navigate vaccine sign-up. Restaurant relief is on the way, up to $5,000. Portchester Orange designation is lifted. Restaurants in Portchester can now open for indoor dining. About time. The area gets ready to remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Now, to the White Plains Week video newsreel March of Time for January 15th, 2021. Persons lined up for the first public vaccinations of the COVID-19 vaccine Wednesday at the Westchester County Center. The process was very orderly, and on Wednesday, 1,030 persons were vaccinated, according to Westchester County Executive George Latimer. And in addition, 1,000 persons were vaccinated at the County Department of Health facility in White Plains on Church Street. What is it like to get a shot at the county center? Here, we're looking at the county center. There is no line as of 10 a.m. Thursday morning. People are walking in from the parking lot in the distance there, and drop-offs are taking place. The parking shown here is free. Persons coming for the shot just show your registration ticket and you're waved in. You park free, no charge. However, if you have trouble walking long distances, as you can see, you have a considerable distance to walk from the parking lot. You may be dropped off in front of the county center, and you walk into the main entrance building bringing your registration, and there it is. They will not let you in for your shot if you don't have that with you, plus personal ID. Now, for the shot, which is issued you online after you pick a place to get the shots and identification. In the Thursday COVID briefing, County Executive George Latimer said at the 2,000 a day pace this week, that's 1,030 vaccinations at the county center Wednesday and 1,000 at the Department of Health. At this rate, it will be difficult to vaccinate all of Westchester County until the summer or early fall. The county executive said Thursday, repeating Governor Cuomo's call for more vaccine supply to New York. Mr. Latimer said that to vaccinate 19 million New Yorkers at the present rate of 300,000 vaccine donations every week, the current supply allocated New York by the federal government would take 60 weeks to inoculate all 19 million New Yorkers. Latimer said in his Thursday afternoon briefing, the county hoped to maintain a $2,000 a day vaccination, 2,000 person a day vaccination rate as the vaccinations moved ahead. But that will take a while. According to 2020 Westchester demographics, there are 826,000 adults over 18 in Westchester County. Children under 18 number approximately 123,000. To achieve herd immunity, you need approximately 70% of the population to get the vaccine, both shots. It is also assumed that not all 800,000 will opt for the vaccine. 70% of 825,000 is 577,500 persons. To vaccinate that number of Westchester residents at the 14,000 person a week rate, it would take 41 weeks, putting us at the second week of October for vaccinations at herd immunity ready at the present pace. At 14,000 vaccinations a week, that would take 41 weeks, taking you into the second week of October, and does not bode too well for schools, and that's at the present rate. Now, Ken Jenkins in the COVID briefing Thursday said it would be by the fall when herd immunity would take place. At these rough statistics I have roughly thought out show Mr. Jenkins is on the money. If inoculations and supply do not ramp up, the recovery, as Mr. Latimer put it, is not going to happen as robustly as hoped. However, this situation of needing more vaccine, friends, and some states needing more than others, presents an ethics dilemma. Do you try and deliver the vaccine to heavily populated areas such as New York, California, Connecticut, New Jersey, Illinois to tame the virus quicker? Or do you make the call to move the vaccine where the infections are the most and where the economy is hurting the most? Or do you spread what you have across the country, not giving enough to any state, assuring they all suffer? I mean, this has to be worked out by the quote, experts, unquote. The supply has to be monitored according to needs somehow. Is the dilemma of a fighting unit, it's like the dilemma of having a fighting unit being overwhelmed. Do you send reinforcements or sacrifice them to hold your ground instead of risking your entire force? Think about it. The distribution has to be carefully analyzed. What would you do, especially when the vaccine is a two-shot vaccine? The Biden administration has elected to spread the vaccine nationally, with perhaps the risks there is that will be too little too late. This has to be analyzed more carefully. We are in a triage situation. Without an economy or workforce back to work and back to school, the nation will be weakened even more than it is now. Should the strong states survive to lead the nation back, or should, well, what would you do? This will be looked at for a long time and debated for years after it plays out, whatever the result. How are the numbers? Not encouraging at all on Wednesday when Westchester started the second day of vaccinating the public. 723 tested positive out of 10,720 tested. A 6.7% infection rate. In the last 7 days since our last White Plains Week report, 69,738 were tested in Westchester County and 5,693 tested positive. The average infection rate is a dangerous, out of control 8.2%. Over 7 days, 1 week since we did the last show, the average infection rate is 7.1%. Look at the run-up of people getting COVID. 913, 853, 789, 803, 872, 740, and on Wednesday, 723. That's an average of 800 persons getting COVID a day, with the potential for hospitalization. We are not making progress controlling ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. This week we are averaging 800 persons a day getting COVID, and if 5% of them are hospitalized, that is 40 a day for a week. That's 14 days from now we could have 280 hospitalizations. Not to mention the hospitalizations that Mr. Latimer said were up Thursday to 554. That's the highest number, he said, in the second wave, and it has reached the halfway mark last April when Westchester had 1,200 hospitalizations. In the mid-Westchester region, of which Westchester is part of, Westchester has half the hospitalizations of the 1,053. We have turned into Rockland and Putnam counties, outdistancing them in irresponsibility to protect against COVID. Do you see why the county executive is concerned? If you get 200 hospitalizations from last week's positives each day, and 200 the week before, and 280 from this week's positives, that hits 1,200, and the county rise shows no signs in stopping. 1,200 hospitalizations and going up because of the infection, people infected over the last 3 weeks. Now, look at how the infections have risen in the top hot spots, which have been hot spots for months. This is where it's all coming from. Here are the line scores of daily positive cases. Yonkers, number 1 at 1,072 new cases in just the last 4 days. Look at that, 261, 168, 188, and 455. Is there any enforcement down there? We wonder. New Rochelle, number 2, 117 new cases in the last 4 days. No, excuse me, 343 new cases. 95, 72, 59, and 117 for Neuro. And White Plains is suffering too. White Plains has 217 new cases. 67, 29, 68, 53 cases in the last 4 days. And down come the list, it goes down considerably. The top 10 list is instructive. The up-county towns are rising. Yonkers has almost 20% of the new cases this week. Even White Plains has moved on up. The 67 and 68 numbers this week is the highest White Plains has hit in months. Portchester was removed from its orange designation by the governor because of a lawsuit filed in Erie County. So the Portchester restaurants can now have indoor dining if socially distanced, if they are still able to run their businesses. But why was Portchester orange when they had considerably lower infections than Yonkers and New Rochelle had these last 3 months? I mean, I don't understand that thinking. I mean, please. We have to be disciplined and safe, and with another 3-day weekend coming up, more opportunities to socialize and spread the disease. We will not recover with the big population areas the leading COVID infectors. This was the headline of the New York Times Thursday morning. How about that? It shows you the aftermath of the day of no return, when the Vice President Pence said he would not invoke the 25th Amendment to replace President Trump. The House voted to impeach the president with 7 days to go in his term. The proceeding was not constructive, in my opinion, but instead Congress sought to regain its aplomb and pomposity and importance by impeaching. This really is going to motivate the Republicans in the new Congress to work on President Biden's stimulus bill, or vote for more vaccines, or vote relief for California and New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Where is the spirit of kumbaya here? Senator Mitch McConnell said he would not try Mr. Trump before he left office. That is, Trump leaving office. So, you might have known that was going to happen. It was just an exercise in huffing and puffing, which is what Congress has been doing for some time. Meanwhile, we await inauguration and the wonderful new spirit we can expect of togetherness as we look forward to a week from today. That'll be the day. Elsewhere, the Raising the New York State Bar Restaurant Recovery Fund is a partnership between New York State, Diageo Wine and Spirits, Southern Glacier Wines and Spirits, and the National Development Council. Grant funding is managed by the National Development Council. Restaurants can now apply for up to $5,000 in aid to the Rising New York State Bar Restaurant Recovery Fund starting this last Monday, and that is the website where you go. 50 volunteers answered Greenberg Supervisor Paul Finer's call for volunteers to help guide non-computer savvy seniors through applying for a COVID shot, which is complex. The County Board of Legislators also voted 17-0, a vote of no confidence in the New York State Board of Elections selection of a touchscreen voting machine. This came out of nowhere. The state board was supposed to vote on it Thursday, but there was nothing on the State Board of Elections website as to what they voted or whether they postponed it. Boy, let's do away with all the press offices of all these departments across the state that don't do their job. But I cannot believe this was under the radar before the day before the hearing. What is touchscreen voting, you ask? Here's an explanation of how it works. Right around the corner from the McAllen building, White Plains County seat, Federated Department Stores announced via a news release that they are closing Macys, perhaps in 6 months. And next week, Sears, shown here below, Macys in the shot, is closing its stores and everything must go. The Galleria needs a couple of new anchor stores. Since White Plains sales tax receipts are down 14% in the first 5 months of their current fiscal year, this is not good news. And we now wonder what will be the Galleria's owner's new vision for the mall, which the city of White Plains has told us the owners are working on. First, they need something to fill up that space. Now I want to announce that this program you are watching is coming up on its 20th anniversary and on the internet throughout the universe. Once a week, every week, telling you the facts, the future, what will affect you, and offering insights like no other program you can see. Jim Beneroff of the legendary Suburban Street Weekly, Alex Philippidis, the respected White Plains reporter and business reporter with the Westchester County Business Journal, and I began the program. They worked with me on January 22nd, 2001 in the premiere show. And here's what the people saw that night. How about that? You know, you can see the complete program next week on January 21st on People to Be Heard's special White Plains Week anniversary special. There is no Martin Luther King breakfast at the White Plains Crown Plaza Monday, and because Monday is Dr. Martin Luther King Day, and usually there's a breakfast held in Dr. Martin Luther King's honor. But we live in a time where Dr. Martin Luther King would step up and point his finger. What do you think he would say to Americans, Congress, the new president? The sad thing is this world would have been better today if the voice of reason and nonviolence had not been murdered in 1968. What would Dr. King say, do you think? Now, there is no breakfast at the Crown Plaza, as there usually is in New York, but Dr. King's name stands for a value, as I wrote many years ago, a value that America used to hold dear. or we like to think we do. Today, more than ever, his values were trashed last week on the day of no return, January 6th. George Washington stands for honesty, Abraham Lincoln for freedom, Columbus for discovery. Dr. King's name stands for opportunity. Let me add to that fairness, compassion, a willingness to help and recognize wrong, non-violence, respect for the other. What would Dr. King say if he addressed the group at the Crown Plaza if they were meeting Monday? Or, better yet, to Congress? What would he say if he were alive before inauguration to the U.S. Congress and the new president? And perhaps a few words about the departing president and what the new Congress, the new president, and the Congress have to do to repair the American dream and treat all Americans as important, equal, and respected and contributing. Politicians have forgotten that. What would Dr. King say? I wish he were here this week to say it. Don't you? It would be a doozy. John Bailey sang "Good Night, Jim Benroff," and thank you. Good night, Alex Filippidis, and thank you. And Peter Katz, and thank you, who have all contributed to make this program an institution. Sean Bailey, good night for White Plains Week.